Hi there. It's August the 8th, and we're continuing our progress through the book of Ezra, and we are in chapter 7 and the first 20 verses of chapter 8. Now, we come here to the part of the story which introduces us to the character after whom the book is named, the character Ezra the Scribe. Ezra, his name means help, as in the help of God. And Ezra is living in the reign of King Artaxerxes Longimanus. Now, we have to go back to the fact that we saw that the temple was established under King Darius, and it was finished around about 515 BC, and then Darius reigned for another 30 years, and then his son Xerxes reigned for 20 years. Now, that Xerxes is actually linked to the king Ahasuerus of the story of Esther and Haman and Mordecai, and so it was a time when the Jews were under threat, but then through God's intervention they were saved, and so King Ahasuerus, who marries Esther, rescues the Jews. And perhaps there's something here that explains the favour of King Artaxerxes Longimanus towards Ezra. The Jews have found favour with the emperor there, with the king, and Ezra certainly finds such favour with the king that he is enabled to lead a second tranche of exiles back to Jerusalem, and this is around 57 years after the establishment of the temple under Darius. So it's a goodly time after that period at the end of chapter 6. So in chapter 7, Ezra is given permission by the king, by King Artaxerxes, to take numbers of people back to Jerusalem. Now, the king issues him with a letter, and it's kind of a passport. It's a letter of safe passage, and it sends him back, gives maybe information to the rulers beyond the river, those back in Judah and Jerusalem, but it also equips the trip with great wealth and supply, and instructs the governors in the land there beyond the river to supply the Jews with whatever they need to continue to worship the Lord. And it also instructs them not to be charged taxes. They are exempted from taxes by the order of the king. This is the level at which the king is blessing these people going back. And at the end of chapter 7, there's and by the way, the letter of Artaxerxes, the language that is given in the scriptures, the original scriptures, is actually Aramaic again here. The king's letter breaks into Aramaic to show that it's an official communication. This is actually what the king wrote. But then the last couple of verses of chapter 7, the blessing is a blessing in Hebrew language, and it's blessing God for his favour in putting this into the heart of the king and allowing him to establish the return of more of the exiles to the land. And so in chapter 8 we see Ezra gathering together people from the different tribes. Probably several thousand went back. Wasn't as many as went back with Zerubbabel earlier on, but there's a good number go back with him, several thousand, because although the men are counted here, there would have been women and children added on. Although it turns out that when they're about to gather together, they camp by the river Ahava, and they're ready for their journey, but they find to their horror that they don't have any Levites with them. They don't have any of the priestly tribe who are able to perform the works of service to the Lord. And so they send representatives from the tribes that they have to the city where the Levites are staying, and they bring a number of Levites. They bring scores of Levites back, but also a couple of hundred of the Netinim. And the Netinim are the servants of the Levites, those who are kind of the stewards of the house that David put in place. And so we find in chapter 8 and verse 20, we find that the party is ready to move off, is ready to make this great journey of going back to the land. It's amazing how God is able to move things in history. He's able to move the hearts of kings. He's able to release his people and to do amazing things. God is the one who is Lord of history. He is the one who is the Lord of all things. And obviously through Jesus, our Messiah, we see him stepping into history himself and altering the course of history. And so with Ezra, we see that this blessing that he says at the end of chapter 7 is blessing the Lord who is able to put things into the hearts of kings. And we see him continuing to do that in our day as he places his hand on the course of human history. Have a very good August.